All right, folks, we're back. All right, so let's go ahead and continue with our next lecture, part of the same section. So right now, what I'm about to do is to remove the director. You could say demote the domain controller from server 2. Server 2 is a replica. Let's take a look and see what's going on here. Let me go to server 2 and log on to server 2. So here we go. Right, so if I do the netdom query FSMO, I can see that server 2 is holding the FSMO roles. And if I go to server 1 and log on, I can see that they're actually pointing to server 2. All right. So watch this. Let me do a netdom query FSMO. And I can see they're pointing to server 2. So if I demote server 2, remember my domain, which is the parent domain, has two DCs, server 1 and server 2. Server 2 is holding the FSMA roles. If I demote server 2, the FSMA roles automatically will get transferred to server 1. But what's going to happen to server 2? It's not going to be a standalone server. It will become a member server, which means it's just joined to the domain. So let me go to server 2. Watch this. And my next step is to manage, remove roles and features, and go next, and remove the check mark from Active Directory domain services and go. And it's going to fail. You know what I also need to do? I'm not going to have DNS on this server anymore. So what? Look, see, it's failing. So I could do demote this domain controller, right? That's what I'm going to be doing. But look what I'm going to do here. I need to make a minor change over here. So when I go to my network settings, I know that I have two DNS servers. So what I need to do is make sure the DNS which is on this server is actually gone. I cannot use 128. 128 is the first one. I cannot use 129 anymore. 129 is this server. And if I demote DC, DNS is also gone. So just to be on the clear. So I would go back here and say, it's when do I do a force removal? If everything crashes and I want to start from scratch, I hope it never happens to anybody. That's when you do a force removal. So of course I'm not. I'm going to be notifying my DC1, which is server one. Next, proceed with removal. Next, and put a password. This is going to be the local password, but even though it's going to be part of the domain, because if it's a member server, I could log into the domain or to the local machine. Next, and demote. Watch this. Keep watching. This is actually interesting to actually watch and see what happens over here. Let's give it a moment and see how this works for us. So it should transfer the FSMA roles. All right, you saw that LDAP to server one. It doesn't take long, as you see. It's going to restart right now. But if you notice something, I'm going to click on close. It's going to restart. I want to go to server one and show you that server one is holding the FSMA roles right now. Watch. See this? It was two. Watch this now. Take a look and see what's going to happen. They're back on one, guys. You see that, folks? Why? Because when I demote a replica, the replica had the FSMA was like, I need to give these FSMA roles to someone else in the domain, and only DC1 is there, so DC1 got the roles right now. If I check Active Directory users and computers, on my see child is no longer there. So it's going to crash. See that? So I should close and tools and Active Directory users and computers. So if I right click and change domain, I'm not going to see the other domain, right? The child is not there. So if I right click and choose change domain controller, I don't see the other one. It's gone. Same thing. If I go domain controls you, I don't see the second one. It's going to be under the computers container. See that? It's part of the domain. When something joins the domain, if it's a server or a client, that's where they actually automatically go. That means it's just part of the domain. I could log on to the domain, but I cannot manage Active Directory. You know, that's we're going to see that in more details. So let me minimize this and go to server two, and there we go. We're at the logon screen and I want to still log on to the domain. See, I could log on to the domain, or I could say other user. If I want to log in locally, I would do dot slash. See, look at the bottom here. It says local machine, right? So look, let me log in locally and show you what's the effect over here. And let me put the password. So I'm logging on local machine, even though it's part of the domain. I am not authenticating with the actual domain. So let's keep that in mind, and let me show you what's going to happen here. The Active Directory role, the domain service is still there, which includes the RSAT, right? So that's actually still there. I want to see if I could manage Active Directory, even though I'm logged in actually locally. So watch this. Let's give it a moment. Go to Tools and open Active Directory users and computers. Look what it's going to tell me. You can't, right? I can't. Why? Let me tell you why. I still have the RSAT installed. These are part of the RSAT pack, right? Look, let me cite, look, because if I open the command prompt and I say, who am I, space slash user, watch this. Font, let me just change the font over here to green. And let me say, let me just do this. Who am I, space slash user? It's the local machine. I'm logged in locally. So I'm going to log off just like this. And this time I'm going to log on to the domain. So let's take a look. So this time I'm going to say other user. I could say administrator at, this is a classic way. And I could say Udemy and then the password. So now I'm logged into the domain because this machine is still a member server. So if I open the command prompt, and I say, who am I again? And look, it says .udemy. This is perfect, right? So if I say, who am I, space slash user, look what it says. Udemy slash administrator. Okay. I go to tools. I open Active Directory. Look what's going to happen. I should be able to open it. Why? Because I'm logged into the domain. Doesn't mean I have Active Directory installed here. This is part of the RSAT, which means I could remotely manage Active Directory. Okay. But it's not a domain controller because under domain controls, I only have server one. This machine that I'm working on is actually server two. It's a member server. So for me to manage Active Directory remotely, like on a server, I have to be part of the domain. Then I could install the RSAT. We're going to see that more and more. For now, I'm going to remove the role, just like what I did on server three, guys. So I'm going to go next, next, and we're going to come back to this in a future. Lab. So you'll see. Let me remove this and remove also DNS. Put a check mark in the box and click on remove. Give it a moment. It should not take long. It's going to restart. Same thing, but it's still going to be a member server. So I'm going to leave it as it is. It's going to be a member server, which means it's part of the domain. I mean, member servers will be discussed in a moment, standalone and domain control. Just a quick recap. So let's give this a moment. It's going to restart in a few seconds. All right. There you go. Almost there. All right. So this is like the proper way of doing things here, installing and demoting and removing the role of Active Directory domain services. So let's give it just a few more seconds and it should just restart on its own because I left the check mark to say reboot on completion. Right. So that's what should I see. Look what it's removing, the ADDS tools. ADDS tools. That's what it's actually getting removed right now. Remember, Active Directory is using LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, right? The authentication is actually Kerberos. That's the one that verifies the username and the actual password. So let's remember that. There you go. Restarting. This looks good. Let's give it a moment and see how this works out for us. Almost there. And then I have to log in for it to continue removing the role. Okay, so that's what I need to do to continue removing the role. So it's still actually a member server. It's still part of the domain. So when I demote a replica, the directory is gone, but it's still part of the domain. So it's going to the domain itself. All right. So let's remember that. The last one, which is server one, when I demote it, it will become a standalone server. It's a workgroup. All right, so we'll see that in a moment. Let's just give it a few more seconds and see how this actually works out for us. Let's see, almost there. All right, continuing to remove the actual features and roles. And I should be getting the logon screen right now. All right. I remember I had to do the DNS configuration because this is no longer a DNS service. So I'm still logging on to the domain itself, right? So another way to log on to the domain, you actually put the domain, Udemy, and I say slash, right, administrator. And then I put the password. It's the same thing. Either way is the same, guys. See that? It goes back to this. They're both the same. Let me just make sure the role is actually gone from here. Give it a few seconds and let's give it a moment and that should continue removing the role. So I won't be able to manage Active Directory from this box over here, right? So let's see. All right, good. It is actually in the process of removing the role itself. So this actually looks good. But remember, it's a member server because it's actually part of the domain. Udemy dot local, guys. So let's give this a moment and it should be done in a few more seconds. All right, look, domain, udemy.local. When I click on it, I don't get that error message. Oh, it's a domain. See, it's just part of the domain. All right, see, I don't get that message where it's a domain controller. No, it's just a member server. It's part of the domain. I could close right now and it will still continue removing, by the way. It will not affect it. Just to let you know, it doesn't mean you have to keep staring at it, right? From here to see what's going on. So it's actually done. So I'm back to normal, just like this. All right, good. So I'm going to suspend this. Actually, you know what? Let me leave the server for now. Or you know what? Let's suspend it. We'll come back to it later on. This part of the lecture we finished. So we have a few more. In our next lecture, I want to go over demoting the last domain control of the domain, right? Which is server one. All right, folks. So we'll see you guys soon. Okay, guys. Bye.